As the World Turns ran on CBS for 54 years, produced 13,858 episodes, and dominated the daytime ratings from 1958 to 1978, a virtually unbroken 20-year reign at number one. The show generated advertising revenue for the network across 6 decades through economic booms, recessions, and the complete transformation of the television business. The cast members who made that revenue possible were paid per episode under successive AFTRA contracts, and almost none of their individual salary figures were ever made public. What is public is the math of the system they worked inside. In the early 1970s, established soap opera performers earned approximately $1,000 per week. The show was already a ratings powerhouse by then. It had been the top daytime program in America for over a decade. The people who kept it there were earning a working wage, memorizing 50 to 60 pages of dialogue per day, performing live on air in the early years, and building the commercial engine that funded an entire network's daytime schedule. This is the story of who stayed, who left, and what each choice cost. 3 women passed through. As the world turns in the 1980s, and used it as a launchpad to careers the show itself could never have offered them. Marisa Tomei played Marcy Thompson from 1983 to 1985. She was 18 years old when she started, a teenager from Brooklyn with minimal professional experience, cast in a supporting role that served primarily as a training ground. Meg Ryan played Betsy Stewart from 1982 to 1984, entering the show at age 20. Julianne Moore played the dual roles of half-sisters Franny and Sabrina Hughes from 1985 to 1988, joining at age 24, roughly a year out of Boston University's School of Performing Arts. All 3 were young contract players earning entry-level daytime rates on a Procter & Gamble production. All 3 left within a few years. The show could launch careers. It could not retain the people it launched. Ryan's departure led to a film career that redefined the romantic comedy for an entire decade. Her on-screen wedding on ATWT on May 30, 1984, had drawn 20 million viewers, making it the second highest-rated hour in American soap opera history at the time. She walked away from that audience to take smaller parts, including a minor role in Top Gun in 1986, before breaking through with When Harry Met Sally in 1989. Tomei won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for My Cousin Vinny in 1992, 7 years after leaving the show. Moore won the Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Ingenue in 1988 for her work on ATWT, then spent several years in forgettable television movies before her film career ignited with Robert Altman's Shortcuts in 1993. She would go on to win the Academy Award for Best Actress for Still Alice in 2015. Moore later told IMDb that As the World Turns was my first big job and the first time that I was able to support myself by acting. She recalled working alongside a cast that included Tomei and the recently departed Ryan. I learned so much, she said. Marisa Tomei was on that show with me. Meg Ryan was on, but she just left. Steven Weber played my boyfriend. When the cancellation was announced in 2009, Moore volunteered to return for the finale. She came back for 1 episode in April 2010 to help close out her character's story. The show that could not afford to keep Julianne Moore in 1988 could not have afforded her 2010 rate either. Ryan, Tomei, and Moore earned a combined 5 Academy Award nominations among them, with 2 wins. They built careers worth tens of millions of dollars. The show had served as a finishing school for future Oscar winners, and earned nothing from any of them once they walked out of the soundstage. Helen Wagner never walked out. She played Nancy Hughes from the premiere on April 2, 1956, when she spoke the show's very first line, "Good morning, dear," until her final appearance on April 5, 2010. 54 years in a single role. The Guinness World Record for the longest-running performance by one actor in one part in television history. Before the show, Wagner had been a singer and stage actress who paid rent by working as a church soloist. She had appeared on Broadway in Oklahoma and The Bad Seed. She signed a 13-week contract with As the World Turns in 1956. That contract became her entire professional life. She was 37 years old when she started. She was 91 when she died. The industry did not reward that loyalty with stability. After 13 weeks on the job, creator Irna Phillips fired Wagner because she did not approve of the way Wagner poured coffee during a scene. A suitable replacement could not be found. Wagner was rehired. 25 years later, in the early 1980s, new producer Mary Ellis Boonham pushed Wagner from contract status to recurring in an effort to attract younger viewers. Wagner lost her guaranteed airtime for approximately 4 years. She told the Associated Press during that period, "I had nothing whatsoever to do anymore. I have not been in the kitchen for a year and a half." The show brought her back to contract in 1985. By the 2000s, her appearances had dwindled to 3 or 4 per month. She told the New York Times in 2006, "I do not like the making of Nancy into only an extra figure at parties. She is too dynamic a person to be made into a ghost." Wagner never received a single Daytime Emmy nomination for acting across 54 years. After 48 years on the show, the Television Academy gave her a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2004. It was the only Emmy recognition she ever received. Outside the studio, she chaired a national committee that raised more than $1 million to replace the theater at her alma mater, Monmouth College in Illinois. She received a plaque on the Buddy Holly Walk of Fame in Lubbock, Texas in 2002. On November 22, 1963, Wagner was on air performing live as Nancy Hughes when the broadcast was interrupted by Walter Cronkite's bulletin announcing the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. She did not learn what had happened until after the episode ended. That clip became one of the most replayed moments in American broadcast history. Wagner appeared in approximately 19,700 scenes across her run. Cancer took her on May 1, 2010, at her home in the Hudson Valley, New York. She was 91 years old. The final episode aired on September 17, 2010, less than 5 months after her death. Fans had spent years imagining Wagner speaking the series' last line, "Good night, dear." She did not live to deliver it. Co-star Katherine Hayes told We Love Soaps that, even at the end while hospitalized, Wagner knew she had a call to appear on the show the following week. She asked the doctor if they could get her well enough to be there for her call. Don McLaughlin, who played Wagner's on-screen husband Chris Hughes from the premiere in 1956, endured the same demotion in the 1980s. When Boonham pushed for younger stories, McLaughlin was moved to recurring status alongside Wagner. Both actors publicly protested the reduction. They were brought back in 1985 for a storyline celebrating Chris and Nancy's 50th wedding anniversary, which doubled as the show's 30th anniversary. McLaughlin died on May 28, 1986, at age 79, at his daughter's home in Goshen, Connecticut, after a brief illness. The anniversary episode had aired approximately 2 months earlier. Before television, McLaughlin had been a radio actor, starring as the title character in David Harding, counter-spy throughout the 1940s and 1950s. He had planned to study for the ministry before entering college. He spent the last 30 years of his life on a soap opera instead. Don Hastings outlasted everyone. He played Dr. Bob Hughes from October 1960 to the final episode on September 17, 2010, 50 continuous years without a single break. No other actor on an American serial held a role that long without interruption. In 1965, NBC offered him a part on Days of Our Lives. He turned it down because he was content at ATWT. That decision kept him in one role for the remaining 45 years of his working life. Like Wagner, the Television Academy never nominated him for a competitive acting Emmy. He received a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2004 and a Silver Circle Award in 1993 for his years in the industry, recognition for endurance, not performance. Hastings spoke the final line of the series, "Good night," providing the bookend that Wagner could not deliver. He was 76 years old. He is still alive, now 92, living in New York State with his second wife, actress Leslie Denniston, whom he met on the ATWT set. He has not taken on significant acting roles since the show ended. Before ATWT, Hastings had performed in 4 Broadway shows as a child actor in the 1940s and spent 6 years as the video ranger on Dumont's Captain Video. He also wrote scripts for ATWT in 1971 and 1972, and for Guiding Light under the pen name J.J. Matthew. He maintained membership in the Writers Guild throughout his acting career, a detail that speaks to how little daytime acting alone could sustain a person seeking financial stability. Katherine Hayes joined in 1972 as Kim Sullivan, a scheming younger sister who arrived in Oakdale to wreck her siblings' marriage to Dr. Bob Hughes. Over 38 years, Kim evolved from villain to matriarch and married Bob on screen, making Hayes and Hastings the show's central couple for decades. Hastings described their partnership by saying, "Our relationship as Bob and Kim was as close as Katherine and my relationship, except we were not married. We were more like brother and sister. Our biggest squabble was that she always wanted to rehearse, and I wanted to take a nap." Despite 38 years in the role and a character who anchored the show's second act, Hayes was never nominated for a Daytime Emmy for her work on As the World Turns. Her only Emmy nomination came from a different show entirely, a 1968 guest role on Star Trek, playing a mute alien in the episode The Empath, which was the second most watched episode of its season. Hayes died on March 25, 2022, at age 87, in an assisted living facility in Fairfield, Connecticut. No specific cause of death was publicly disclosed. Eileen Fulton's story is a contract story from first scene to last. She joined the cast on May 18, 1960, at age 26, hired for what was supposed to be a 3-month summer arc. The writers had intended Lisa Miller to be a sweet girl next door. Fulton chose to play her differently. The audience response was so intense that fans stopped her on the street and physically slapped her. CBS hired a bodyguard to escort her to and from the studio. Fulton became daytime television's first villain star, the character the audience loved to hate across 8 fictional marriages and nearly 50 years of continuous performance. She was the first soap actress to hire a publicist in the 1960s. During the same period, she was simultaneously appearing on As the World Turns, which was broadcast live, and performing on Broadway in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and off-Broadway in The Fantastics. The schedule demanded that she race between the CBS studio and the Billy Rose Theater on the same day. When the show aged Lisa's son from 12 to 19 in the late 1960s, Fulton negotiated a clause into her contract prohibiting the writers from making her character a grandmother. She had watched another actress on the show lose her role after her character became a grandmother, and she refused to let it happen to her. In 1983, Fulton left in a contract dispute. The show replaced her with Betsy von Furstenberg. When Fulton heard the writers were considering killing Lisa off entirely, she negotiated her return in 1984 with terms that included 6 months on, 6 months off, a more prominent storyline, and time for outside work, scheduling flexibility that was unusual for daytime performers of that era. She once refused to film a scene in which Lisa was being spanked by a male character, stating she believed it glorified spousal abuse. She once warned creator Irna Phillips, who had refused to tell her whether Lisa was the culprit during a murder mystery plotline. "We are live, do not forget, and if you do not tell me, I will make up your mind for you on the air." Fulton told NPR in September 2010 that her character had inspired a generation of parents to name their daughters Lisa. "It was the beginning of feminism," she said, "women taking up for themselves and going out into the world." She retired in 2019 and moved back to North Carolina. She died on July 14, 2025, at age 91, in Asheville, after a period of declining health. Larry Brigman played Dr. John Dixon from July 1969 to December 2004, 35 years in a role that was originally supposed to last 3 episodes. The producers saw potential and offered him a contract. He won Daytime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Lead Actor in 1984 and 1987. He received 2 Tony Award nominations for Broadway work he performed alongside his soap schedule, appearing opposite Al Pacino 3 separate times across stage and screen. He won an Obie Award for Sustained Excellence of Performance in 1993. In December 2004, his picture vanished from the opening credits without explanation. There was no farewell scene, no on-screen departure. It was later reported that the show had offered Brigman a substantially reduced pay rate, and he chose to leave rather than accept the cut. His character was never written out. Dr. John Dixon simply stopped appearing. leaving viewers who had watched him for over 3 decades with no closure and no explanation. For the show's 50th anniversary special in 2006, vintage clips of Brigman were used, though the actor himself did not participate. He returned only for the final 12 episodes in August 2010. The show that could not pay him what he had been earning could still use his face in a retrospective. Brigman is alive, 87 years old, and still active in theater. Colleen Zenk played Barbara Ryan for 32 continuous years, from 1978 to the finale. She received 3 Daytime Emmy nominations and never won. Head writer Hogan Sheffer told The New Yorker in 2006 that he considered Zenk an underutilized actress who had spent years doing too little on screen, reduced to pouring coffee with children underfoot. When Sheffer took over and gave Barbara a darker, more complex direction, Zenk finally received material that matched her ability. In 2007, 3 weeks after undergoing initial surgeries for oral cancer that included tongue reconstruction, Zenk performed in a production of Stephen Sondheim's Follies while on heavy pain medication from radiation treatment. She sang and danced with a 35-piece orchestra. Before joining ATWT, she had appeared on Broadway in 1980 opposite Cheetah Rivera and Donald O'Connor in Bring Back Birdie, and co-starred in the 1982 film Annie. She is alive, 73 years old and still working. She appeared on The Young and the Restless as the recurring character Jordan Howard from November 2023 to January 2025. Benjamin Hendrickson played Detective Hal Munson for 21 years, starting in 1985 with a single day of work that turned into a contract. Executive producer Christopher Gutman later said Hendrickson always joked that he was hired for 1 day, then before he knew it he had impregnated the leading lady and had to sign a contract. He won the Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actor in 2003. His acceptance speech was one sentence directed at his mother. "To my mother, who scrimped and saved to send me to Juilliard to study the classics, I am sorry." He had been a member of Juilliard's first drama division class, alongside Kevin Kline and Patti LuPone, and a founding member of John Houseman's acting company. He originated the role of Dr. Frederick Chilton in the 1986 film Manhunter, and appeared in films including Regarding Henry. On July 3, 2006, his body was found at his home in Huntington, Long Island, New York. He was 55 years old. The Suffolk County Police ruled his death a suicide. Co-star Colleen Zenk told We Love Soaps in 2010, "Those of us that knew him deeply were not shocked. We were just horribly sad that this is where it went and this is where it came to." From 6.5 million viewers in 1993, the audience fell to 2.5 million by 2009. CBS announced the cancellation on December 8, 2009. The rising cost of New York City studio space and set storage was cited as a significant factor in the financial pressures that ended every New York-based soap opera between 2008 and 2012. The final episode aired September 17, 2010. On October 18, 2010, 31 days later, CBS replaced As the World Turns with The Talk. The contracts that governed the cast were written in an era before streaming, before digital syndication, before any of the revenue models that now extend the commercial life of a television performance. Helen Wagner worked 54 years. Don Hastings worked 50 years without a break. Eileen Fulton stayed for nearly 5 decades. The residual structures in their original deals were designed for a world where a rerun aired once and was shelved. The Talk is still on CBS.